case study in cooperative learning and peer tutoring. This is Nairobi, Kenya, and I was staying at the Mennonite Guest House, which also sponsors the project you'll hear about. The title for this case study would be Promoting a Service Ethic that also addresses diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And you'll see how cooperative learning and peer tutoring play a role. Just up the street from the Mennonite Guest House, there is this fair trade shop, which embodies a commitment to fair and cooperative trade and service model while addressing the needs of the disabled community and the struggles they face. Fair trade means that there are set prices and the producer, the craftsperson, is guaranteed a living wage that also supports the community. This is unusual in a culture that historically has used barter, and so prices get argued up and down with no guarantees. This is a way to guarantee that the producers will get a fair trade. In this case, disabled people are crafting some of the materials in this shop, and this affords them a chance for a decent living. Here you see the inside of the Mennonite store, 10,000 villages. They have these stores worldwide, and the Kenyans supply some of the crafts that are in these shops. In addition to a fair trade, a fair price, these operations also provide training, jobs, and revenue within a culture of cooperation. Here is the factory warehouse attached to the fair trade operation, and the idea here is to address a need and create opportunities for disabled people. In Kenya, often those with disabilities are stigmatized and somehow feared that their genetic health puts others at risk. But you'll see that using cooperative principles to design, build, and service wheelchairs works beautifully in this environment and fits the Kenyan landscape. Here's an example of a wheelchair that they created. They could have purchased these on the open market from some places at much less cost, but their experience has been that those chairs tend to break down in the difficult terrain of modern Kenya, where not every street is paved and it is difficult to get around. Moreover, mountain bike wheels, which are part of this design, are readily available and can be reused. The cooperative learning part comes in because students from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology were invited to come and collaborate on the design and production. Here you see their stockpile of mountain bike wheels, representing a creative partnership across cultures and ages within a culture of service leadership that uses and reuses local resources. So cooperative learning, what are the key components and how does the Kenyan case reflect those? Shared responsibility for learning. The Mennonites joined with local Kenyans and the disabled community, reached out to students at MIT, and collectively came up with a plan that involved everyone in design and development. Know that those who oversee this project play a variety of roles, from teachers to observers, designers, group managers, facilitators, often having to move around the factory floor to make sure the wheelchairs are being produced well. Student engagement and empowerment is a big positive in cooperative learning. And when you look on the floor of this factory, you see disabled people actively engaged in the process of creating these wheelchairs, out of which they get a living wage and the dignity that comes with supporting themselves. There are obviously critical thinking skills. They have to analyze data about producing this design of a wheelchair. Will it be affordable? Will it be repairable? There are all kinds of pro-social skills here, from listening to empathizing to negotiating and mediating as they work through the realities of a business plan. Cooperative learning often works well with heterogeneous groups, and the people who work here are clearly that heterogeneous group that often has been pushed out of other projects' possibilities. Cooperative learning is an ideal format for organizing discussions, explorations, inquiry, as they design and redesign the wheelchairs for the future. It's also an ideal format for supporting students in all the application requirements. You see these in the Colorado state standards and other state standards. Here, students from MIT were able to roll up their sleeves and work with local people to design something that was buildable and repairable with local resources. How does peer tutoring fit? There's a need to identify tutors and tutees. On the floor of this factory, people will have to work together. There will be a hierarchy. Those in control will need to build relationships with those they supervise. In the research, it's clear there's a chemistry issue. How well do people get along? But that's something that's learnable and teachable. Motivation can be an issue for both, as in any work setting. Here, though, what's unique is that the disabled population have a real job with real income. They're not wards of the state. They're not living on charity or begging. Training can be effective, but that's true in any production facilities. It does require time, organization, and management, but it can be effective and it can be important to consider. The benefits for those considered the tutee or those on the floor: they get direct support from the supervisors who model expectations. They get direct assistance. They get alternative examples and explanations. Like any good business or organization, there is a process for professional development. For the leaders in this organization, you have the potential for a deeper understanding, a challenge to explain, real variety in the day. So it's not just producing these wheelchairs, it's also talking through the problems and coming up with improvements. Again, a real need for pro-social skill development. The leaders of this operation act as teachers and facilitators, guides, possibly program developers and managers, a variety of roles to get from an idea into production. Peer tutoring is ideal for helping to address different needs of diverse learners. And these disabled individuals will have those different needs as employees. It's an ideal format for organizing discussions. You can imagine that on the floor there's talk of how to make even a better wheelchair. It's also an ideal format for helping people apply what they've been learning and studying. In this case, factory is not a classroom. In a real sense, it's a production facility that must support itself. It can also become a powerful platform for teaching. Questions to ponder. How can you use cooperative learning in your subject area, where students work together, support each other, there's a positive interdependence, and manage well, you can get greater insights, deeper learning, and a socialization that builds relationships. How can you use peer tutoring? Is it worth the time and effort to train tutors and set that kind of program in place? And finally, what's the value of peer support and assistance for student learning? How can those factors help you in what you're trying to do?